In last week's series of 5 videos on the law of parliamentary elections in Singapore, we went through quite a lot of detail on big theories like the principle of democracy and separation of powers. But I realized that there was this one fundamental concept that I didn't quite go through: how Parliament actually makes laws on the ground in reality. So that's exactly what we will be going through in this video. The usual disclaimer applies: this is not legal advice, and I will only be describing what the law is. I will not be taking a stand on it. Hope you enjoy the video. Let's start by refreshing ourselves on how elections work. During a general election, voters from each constituency cast their votes for their favourite candidate, and the candidate with the most votes gets a seat in Parliament. That is, they win the election. You might also recall that this is the principle of democracy, or rule by the people, in action. The candidate who gets elected is the representative of the people in the constituency. So, who are the people in Parliament? The representatives of the people in the country. But okay, let's leave these big theories and complicated words aside for a bit. What does Parliament really look like? Well, in Singapore, there are about 90 seats in Parliament just for the elected members. And these 90 or so people are given the constitutionally important task of making law for the country. Just imagine putting 90 different people with different views in the same room and asking them to do, well, anything at all. It's hard. So, we still haven't answered the question: how does Parliament make law? Well, let's turn to the document which gives Parliament its power and its significance: the Singapore Constitution. Now, you would recall from our series of videos on parliamentary elections that Parliament is created by Article 39 of the Singapore Constitution. Naturally, you would expect that the Constitution also says something about how Parliament makes law. And it does say that. Article 57, subsection 1 of the Constitution states that any question proposed in Parliament will be determined by a majority of the votes of the members present and voting. That allows Parliament to turn ideas into laws with a simple majority vote. Now, the actual process of that is pretty long and detailed, so I've included a link to a video outlining this entire process in the description to this video. But just keep in mind that at the end of the day, because of Article 57, subsection 1 of the Singapore Constitution, Parliament can make law if the majority of its members agree to do so. This power isn't limited to just making new laws. With a majority vote, Parliament can also change or remove existing laws. In legal terms, changing a law is called an amendment, and removing a law is called a repeal. But there's one particular set of laws that cannot simply be amended or repealed by a majority vote. No surprises for guessing, it's the laws in the Singapore Constitution. And under the Constitution, Article 5, subsection 2 states that any amendments to the Constitution can only be made if 2/3 of the members of Parliament support the amendment. In theory, this makes most of the Constitution harder to amend than ordinary laws. One final point: you might notice that Article 5, subsection 1 mentions Article 8. It essentially states that Article 8 doesn't require a 2/3 majority to be amended. But what is Article 8? Well, it states that the part of the Constitution it belongs to, Part 3, cannot be amended unless the amendment is supported by 2/3 of the votes cast at a national referendum. A national referendum sounds exactly like what it is. Instead of just the people in Parliament, every single person who can vote in Singapore will vote on the amendment to Part 3. And what is Part 3? Well, it's titled Protection of the Sovereignty of the Republic of Singapore, and it deals with the surrender of Singapore's sovereignty, police force, and armed forces. That's existential level important. So Part 3 of the Constitution was made incredibly hard to amend. Even Parliament can't touch that. So in today's video, we talked about how Parliament makes most of its laws through a simple majority vote, but the Constitution is much harder to amend. I really hope that this video was helpful for your understanding. If you're still confused, don't worry about it because this is quite complicated. So please, take your time to figure this out. But with that said, thank you so much to everyone for watching this video and take care of yourselves. Stay safe.